welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast. It's the fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic
Anglican
podcast
in the entire Fox Chapel multiverse.
Multiverse. Lilu Dallas multiverse.
Lulu Dallas.
Fifth Element.
Oh, I never saw that movie.
Oh, it's so good.
Is that Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mila Jovovich. And Tricky from the band Tricky.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and Gary Oldman. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Multiverse.
90s?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when all the good stuff came out.
Yeah.
Air Force One with Harrison Ford. You seen that one?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
It's a great one.
It's a great movie. It's not all that relevant to what we're
No, it's not relevant really at all. That was not a segue.
We could find a way of making it relevant.
We're just free associating right now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We're in Revelation 21, and
it's a movie all about hope.
It's a movie about hope.
It's a movie all about hope.
Air Force One?
No, I'm still on Fifth Element.
Oh, yeah.
It's a movie all about hope.
I was going to say, Air Force One is a movie all about Harrison Ford.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
Well, it's a movie all about hope, and it's slightly religious. So in that respect, it's relevant.
There it is.
Because we're thinking about hope today. We're thinking about the new heavens and the new earth.
Yeah.
And the hope that we find in Revelation 21, particularly... actually, we're going to have a couple of weeks in chapter 21, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, we're going to look at the New Jerusalem and all that's about. And you're teaching on this as well. This is what's kind of cool. You're teaching on this with the youth group. We were over there as parents of youths. We were over there on Sunday night for some games and some worship and then some conversation and some terrible beer. We really need to improve the youth group beer, if you ask me.
The youth group beer.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Is that the leftover stuff from the harvest party?
Yeah, it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And
all you in Russia, we're not a church of drunkards, but there is the occasional beer, but not for the youth group.
No, for parents of youths. And we had this great thing. We're in the Tyndale Chapel. You were leading worship, and what I saw was some of the teaching you've been doing with our youngest members on Revelation. And you had this quiz all set up.
Oh, yeah.
With you were giving points away for people that could understand the book. And you'd offered...
2 points, 3 points, 3.5 points, points and half a point.
7 points.
And then 7 points.
12 points.
666 points.
144,000 points.
Yeah. Caleb Cook won with 144,000 points. No, 133,998 points. I think he lost 2 points for something.
Wow. That's quite a really impressive score.
It was a dominant performance.
It's a high score.
Yeah. Well, I made up a question that I didn't think anyone would get, and
he got it.
Caleb Cook got it.
Of course, Caleb Cook got it.
He's a smart cookie.
That does not surprise me.
Oh, I just made a pun off his last name.
Unfortunately, I've deleted all of the badumch sound samples.
Oh, really?
So we have to say it ourselves. But it's kind of interesting because I think what you're doing is you're trying to give to our youngest people a sense of hope about what the world is all about, where we're from, where we're going, meaning, morality, origin, destiny. You can summarize all of those things with the word purpose. Mm-hmm. What is the point of view? Why are you here? And where are we going?
And so Jenna and I are really wrestling with all these questions about our kids. Of I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. And
you're doing eschatology with them?
Yeah, sometimes. But
yes, you are.
But they how to protect them from this world that they're coming into, and so Jenna sent me this article the other day that she found, and the author, sociologist Jonathan Haidt, I think it's Haidt or Haidt. I think it's actually Haidt, even though I don't want it to be, because it sounds like a mean name.
I think it's Haidt.
You think it's Haidt?
Well, Jordan Peterson says Jonathan Haidt. So I think but then he's Canadian, so I'm like,
Jonathan,
who knows?
Haidt.
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
At the end of his classical music thing. Yeah. So anyways, Jonathan Haidt. He had Voices of Gen Z come and write on his Substack, which is like a blog. And
for all the old people out there,
for all you old,
like a newspaper.
For all you old people, well, I actually don't really know what Substack is either, but apparently it's
I don't know why.
It's like a blog,
isn't it? Something to do with video games.
Yeah, but these are intelligent people trying to write and understand what's ailing the current generation or the rising generation, Gen Z. Those are people who are under the age of like 20, I think. Okay. So, and they say this, parents ask me, this is written by Ricky Schlott, who is a Gen Z girl who is very insightful and a good writer. Says, parents ask me, why are my kids so anxious and depressed? Where do they go all day on their devices? How can I get them back? She's tapping into this sense of dislocation between the rising generation and the older generations. She goes on, if you're a parent wondering the same, I hope I can be an intermediary for you. I understand the desperation that leads parents to ask me, an older Zoomer whose iPhone has been an appendage since age 10, to help them understand. That's crazy. Age 10.
It is.
I'm on the leading edge of a tidal wave of digital natives entering into adulthood with harrowing stories to share. So I'll take my best shot at explaining the malaise of my generation. This is the key phrase. Gen Z has inherited a post-hope world, stripped of what matters. Instead, we've been offered a smorgasbord of easy and unsatisfying substitutes. All the things that have traditionally made life worth living, like love, community, country, faith, work, and family, have all been quote-unquote debunked. So she goes on, sentiments I often hear from peers. With regard to love, monogamy is so outdated. With regard to community, I have enough friends online. With regard to country, I'm embarrassed to be an American. With regard to work, I'm quiet quitting. With regard to family, I'm not bringing kids into this melting world. With regard to faith, my parents are such naive Bible thumpers. So
I know you'll be talking about this a bit in your sermon as well, but it was worth hearing it twice this weekend because I think it's so significant. Mm-hmm. I said this weekend, or last weekend rather, that Satan always offers a counterfeit version, right? So instead of a marriage, he offers a prostitute. Instead of
or porn,
or porn, or something like that. Instead of intimacy, he offers kind of transactions. Uh-huh. You get to network, instead of commune.
Oh, networking is the worst.
It is. It's a way of really using people. In all of these sort of satanic twists, there's something that approximates the blessing or promise of God, but it's actually off just a little bit. And so, instead of fun, you get escapism, which is really the place of addiction. And isolation. And so
instead of real relationships, you get Facebook friends or followers,
right,
on Instagram.
Yeah, instead of the thing that we're doing right now, which is forming our ideas out loud without a script, what you get is curated posts and likes.
One of the things she said later in the article was, in place of meaningful role models and mentors, what Gen Z gets is influencers who are trying to sell them, or ultimately everyone's trying to sell something.
And looming throughout all of this book of Revelation has been this sense that we're headed towards a thing. And some of the bit before we get to the thing is like this. There's a very commercial aspect to what being sealed with the mark of the beast looks like. Or marked with the mark of the beast looks like. It's it actually even locks you out of the marketplace. In the way that they found in Rome, if you didn't have a certain certificate of acquiescence to the emperor, then you couldn't participate in the guilds. So that sort of thing has been done before, where political power uses economic power to kind of bolster itself and locks you out of a system. And our young people are looking at all of this, very overwhelmed with despair about the world, overwhelmed with despair about the environment, and overwhelmed with despair about social upheaval, and all my politicians are bad, all that kind of a thing.
And the world is going to, everything's gonna just dissolve into chaos and misery, and that's the final end or final state of things. And so it is a post-hope world. I've actually heard this sentiment personally from friends. Like I'm not going to bring kids into this world. It's too dark. It's too dismal. They're just going to suffer, and I can't ethically or responsibly bring children into this world.
And it's fascinating to talk to teachers, middle school teachers. Kind of fascinating to talk to them in particular. I think about what they're seeing in their classrooms. Mm-hmm. So we just did Parent Day yesterday at the school, and it was for my 8th grader, and 8th grader, and I asked each of the teachers, what are you seeing in terms of the dynamic of the room and change? Have things changed during your teaching careers? Many of those teachers have been teaching for, say, 20 years. What's it like? And they're all saying the same things. They're saying that they've seen post-pandemic and post-smartphone levels of dysfunction and addiction that they'd never noticed before. Children making fake bathroom needs, just to go off and use their phone. It's all about the phone at school.
Wow.
And they're either going off to just use social media or to look at pornography. Those are the sort of addictive things that are driving young boys and girls to leave a classroom and take a bathroom break.
Yeah.
And then there's, it's just, and it's very anxiety inducing. I think, I was listening to a podcast the other day, which is very similar to kind of the thing you were just observing. And the person on it said, if you look at a young person today, a lot of what they do is through the phone. So groceries are obtained via a phone. Yeah. All sorts of things are purchased through a phone.
Yeah.
And even your human relationships are often initiated through a phone. And it makes sense. It's a very easy way of doing it. But what that means is that if you live, say, in Pittsburgh, and there are thousands and thousands of potential partners out there, just one swipe away, you feel suddenly overwhelmed, even as an adult, with anxiety about that. Well, how will I pick the right one?
Yeah.
There's so many to choose from.
Well, the internet brings the whole world to your doorstep. And so you're presented with more choice than the human brain is really capable of handling. And so what results is just chaos.
Right.
It's just absolute, it's neurological chaos.
It is neurological chaos. And chaos is really, in this book of Revelation, is the dominion of Satan. This is what he does. He brings chaos. The chaos monsters come up out of the deep.
Yeah.
And in classical Hebrew thought and Aramaic thought and in Greek thought, the sea is this place of untrammeled power. And you go back to Daniel, and these beasts symbolizing the empires of the world come crawling up out of the depths of the sea. Think about Jonah thrown into the sea. You think about, the creation and the land is formed out of the sea. You think about Ezekiel with the throne set up in the sea. It's throughout Scripture.
Yeah. That oppression rises out of chaos, and chaos is seen as, at the beginning of Genesis, it's almost like it's uncreation.
Yeah.
It's like chaos is the nothing out of which God brings us something. And it, theologians would disagree. I do think that God created the world ex nihilo, in other words, out of nothing.
Yeah.
But chaos is nothing. It's just a jumbled heap. And so the vision at the end of Revelation is just so much more. Well, I guess I was thinking of it this way. I've been thinking a lot about how to defend my kids and protect them. And how do I protect them from the fragmentation of social media? How do I protect them from the potential of of what happens if we're out, getting coffee at a diner and a psychopath comes in with a gun. What do I do for that? How do I protect them in the face of, wounding and abuse and all of the dangers out there? And
it's really interesting because my kids are that 10 years older than your kids, right? So my thoughts have moved from those kind of basic things of might an external party come in and cause them direct physical harm to what if my kids believe the wrong thing? That's where my anxiety comes in. So what if my kids form an erroneous worldview?
Yeah.
What if my kids fall into relationships or friendships with those who have erroneous worldviews?
Yeah.
And they're now, what I would call meatheads. They're basically just flesh kids with no spiritual discernment. What if they're world kids who have what looks attractive? Because Satan's tricks always look attractive.
Yeah.
So their meathead friends have got things they can do that are fun.
So the thing that occurred to me as I was reading this is that the best defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect your kids is not through insulating them from the nihilism in the world around them, because it's there. There's nothing you can do. Don't get me wrong. My kids are not going to be getting a phone for a long time. They're 5 right now, so I don't know. We'll work that out. And everyone has different philosophies with it, but but rather
you better have a philosophy about it, I think is the thing.
Yeah.
So, but before we get to kind of what we're going to do with the phone, you better have an idea,
and you better have an idea about what life is about and where it's going.
Yeah.
And kids need a more compelling story to be a part of that's true.
Yeah.
They need something more to be going for and to be holding themselves out for, so that the cheap imitation looks just like what it is, the cheap imitation.
Which we've said before. How do you tell a genuine banknote from a fake banknote, or how do you spot a counterfeit banknote? The answer is by knowing a genuine one.
So, Revelation 21. I feel like this has been the longest sermon introduction.
That's why we do the podcast, isn't it?
Text introduction
That's
ever.
why we do it.
But it's just so, just in light of all that, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more.
There it is.
That's a whole sermon right there. That's like the sea was no more.
A time is coming when the dominion of chaos, the domain of chaos is done away with.
Yeah. The fascinating thing about Revelation 21 and 22 is that the new heaven and new earth it's a holy city. It is so ordered. It's like this geometrical perfect cube we're going to get into, and like everything about it is intentionally crafted and placed and secure and ordered. As
the temple was.
Yeah, it's the opposite of chaos.
It's the opposite of chaos. It's considered, it's planned, and it's precise.
But it's not cold precision. It's not like
not a spaceship.
It's not restricting. It's warm.
Okay, I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And that bridal language is often the church, right? And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold," slow down, zoom in, take note. "The dwelling place," I've got to look this up, "of God is with man."
It's skene.
Oh, cool.
It's tabernacle.
It's the tabernacle word. Oh, cool. Okay.
So it's the same word for the tabernacle in the Greek version of the Old Testament.
And it's the same word for description of what Jesus did when he made his dwelling among us.
Yeah, in John 1, the word became flesh and tabernacled among us. What's the actual form of that verb? Is it skane? Something skane.
I've lost it.
Yeah, it's okay.
This is the problem, you see. You need a paper Bible, then you can't scroll away from it.
I need to get one of those. I need to get the Greek Hebrew thing for my Bible study app thing.
Yeah. Well, now I have to switch, so I can't tell you right now.
Yeah, it's okay. But it is the same root word. And So God is tabernacling. He's hanging out. He's camping. He's dwelling with human beings.
Yeah, I'm still annoyedly looking.
It's like
so I'm trying to have a conversation with you, and also annoyedly
the whole podcast
past the
is
verb. Like just talk amongst yourselves for 3 minutes while we quickly consult.
Do we need to pause the podcast and just put elevator music on for a second?
You have been awarded 1 Mario coin.
Did you find it?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, we found it. Skene. Yep. We found it.
It is a noun, nominative, feminine, singular. That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So, anyways, what was the point of that?
It wasn't just in any way help anyone whatsoever. But that's Bible study, folks.
Okay, so God is making his dwelling with people, and God himself will be with them as their God.
Oh no, my mistake. There is a noun and a verb in verse 3 with the same origin, the same root word. It's skenoo.
Skenoo.
It's a verb in the future tense. It's active and it's indicative third person.
He will do it. He will be camping.
It will happen. He will do it.
He will tabernacle among them.
Which is a promise. And it's one of those things where this book is jumping around. Not only is it jumping in the past, present, and future, but its language is jumping past, present, and future. And sometimes it uses the future to describe a past event and vice versa. Because God, the potentate of time, is holding all of these things in his hands. Mm-hmm. It's guaranteed to happen, which is helpful for the anxious to know that there's a guarantee of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're not bringing it about. Right. Notice the new heaven, the earth, or the holy city, New Jerusalem, doesn't come up from earth to God. We don't
not made by us.
We don't make it. Yeah, we don't make the world better and better. And
it comes from outside. It comes from above.
Comes down from heaven.
Yeah. As did Christ at the first advent.
Yeah, it's gift. It's a gift. The new heaven and new earth, the hope of the world is a gift.
Yeah.
And God himself is going to dwell with us and be the husband of the holy city, be the husband of God's people. Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
And Lamb, one of the assistant youth ministers, brought this up this morning. She's teaching on this text for CCYM youth group. And she said, is the bride the holy city, or is it the people of God, those who are in Christ, the church? Because in Ephesians 5, it's the church, the bride of Christ, who is married to the Lamb. So is this whole city a way of describing, a symbolic way of describing the people of God?
Maybe.
I don't know.
You don't know? It's a great question.
Are we talking about...
She's brilliant.
Yeah, it's quite brilliant. Are we talking about God being married to his people and God living in the city that he's marrying? So God is dwelling in the New Jerusalem, and also the New Jerusalem is dwelling in God.
In the way that the Son dwells within the Father.
Yeah, and the Father dwells within the Son.
We're caught up into the Trinity, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're indwelt by the Holy Spirit.
And
already.
This is, get ready for it, an unmediated relationship between God and humanity. The only mediator is God himself.
God himself. Yeah. That's really important. So it's not the church mediating the relationship, or your pastor mediating the relationship, and if what's the problem with all of these media that we have is that they're in the way. All of our human relationships are disrupted by all of these devices. So this is one with all of that junk out the way.
This is total intimacy, and the only thing that comes close to describing anything experientially for those of us on earth that comes close to this is probably a healthy marriage. But even that...
The most intimate, greatest parts of the healthiest marriage are just a kind of faint testimony toward the real thing.
Nobody's marriage actually gets this, because marriage is not the hope of the world.
No.
The hope of the world. Well, the hope of the world is what marriage has been pointing to the whole time.
Yeah. So he will dwell them, and they'll be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God, and he will wipe away every tear. We read this a lot in funerals. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. And we read this at funerals because we are mourning and we are crying, and there is death, and we're looking for hope. We're looking for something beyond the moment that we're in, to give eternal significance and eternal hope to a desperate moment. Those desperate moments, of course, are very powerful because they allow you to ask the really important questions in this life. Yeah. Is there more to life than this? And the answer is yes. So those moments can be quite helpful, because I think if you see that actually those who are in Christ and who've gone to be with him are more alive now than they were before, unencumbered by sin, then perhaps by that same token, we here and now are more dead than we realize. And that's the despair that's sweeping our nation right now, and is particularly infecting our youth. There's a pandemic of despair right now among our youth, and it's spreading. And the despair is what? Well, there's nothing. There's no meaning in anything. If we've pulled the meaning out of every word, and we've redefined every word, and we've redefined everything, even what it is to be a man or a woman, and there's nothing you can rely on anymore of any meaning at all, then everything's meaningless. Then there's no such thing as hope, because for there to be hope, there has to be meaning.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it goes round and round and round. And
so how do you get out of this? What do I say to my youth group kids? Well, I think it's simply this. Don't take my word for it. Just follow Jesus Christ. Look to Jesus Christ, and he's the way out of the dark maze. He's the way. He points the way, and himself is the way.
And your whole body's crying out to you that there is meaning. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel sad.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing, is that sense that things are wrong, and that sense is driven by the fact that things can be right. Because if there really were no meaning, then there would be no point in feeling sad.
Yeah. I think the suffering of our era in the West is this sense of the struggle against nihilism, against the feeling that there is no meaning to any of it, and that life is not fundamentally worth living.
No.
And this is the spiritual battle that we've been given to fight. I think our kids' generation is going to have it heavier than we do. But I think it's important for us to keep our eyes on the prize, that the universe doesn't just collapse into stagnation. But actually things are going to be good.
Behold, I am making all things new. And that's another different tense, isn't it? I am making all things new. Also, he said, write this down. These words are trustworthy and true. There's the other thing of trustworthiness and truth. We can't trust anybody, and there are multiple truths. My truth is this, and your truth is that. We've eliminated the concept that truth is true.
It's like the cynical words of Pilate. What is truth?
What is truth? Questa veritas. That's the question, isn't it, that we've got right now, is what is truth? There's no such thing as truth.
And the truth is ultimately, verse 6, the identity of who God is. It is done.
Past tense.
I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment.
Yeah, that's great, that is.
Yeah. The grace of God, the free gift of God.
Yeah.
And the ultimate sovereignty of God. That's the truth. And the heritage, there's a heritage thing. The one who conquers will have this heritage. I will be his God, and he will be my son. Not child, son. It's a technical term.
It
right?
is a technical term. The one that inherits the title. And there's a reckoning. As for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. So, which is something we looked at last week. And so there is a real thing such as hell.
Yeah. How could there be true justice without it? God doesn't sweep the reality of things under the rug. He doesn't allow unholiness in the presence of holiness. It's not like unholiness or taintedness wins out in the end.
No, it's not. It's not an equal binary, is it? Of good and evil. These are not yin and yang forces.
Yeah.
Against one another. There's the sovereignty of God, and that sovereignty is manifest in the end in grace or justice.
Yeah.
That's the promise of this passage, and that is all premised upon the fact that there is such a thing as truth, and there is such a thing as a judge, an arbiter of truth.
Yeah.
The truth actually has its origin in the truth giver.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can see how, having dismantled so many of these concepts, our children are suffering so much.
Yeah.
That the idea was that in dismantling these things, we'd be more free, and yet we've become more enslaved.
Ideas have consequences. If you tear down everything for a generation, at a certain point you have nothing left to stand on. If you see through everything,
that's what
then
Roper said in A Man for All Seasons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's almost a direct quote. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know who Roper is or what A Man for All Seasons is.
Oh, it's a play.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a play, and he says something like, it's actually an anti-Reformation play, funnily enough, but he says something along the lines: if you chop down all the trees, then you'll have nowhere to hide when the wind blows. And meaning, if you eliminate all of the truths that we know to be true, then essentially you'll just be exposed and desolate. It's a remarkable image, and I think that's what we're seeing in our culture today. There's no truth. You can do what you like. You can be what you like, and all of those things. And our children have almost got travel sick.
Yeah.
Because there's no points of reference anymore. I don't even know if I'm falling or climbing.
If everything is deconstructed, then there's at a certain point there's nothing left to deconstruct, and you certainly can't deconstruct the idea of yourself as the sole being in the universe who has ultimate sovereignty over everything.
Not without describing perfectly, as we can see it, the reality of hell.
Yeah.
Because that is hell.
Yeah, finding yourself totally alone and isolated inside a prison with nowhere to go. The problem is not that the gates are locked. The problem is that there's just no one outside.
Yeah, that's it. A gulag. Well, it's a very hopeless age that we're living in right now. It's a hopeless world.
Yeah.
We have doom scrolling. We have this need to immerse ourselves in negative news.
Yeah.
Positive news doesn't seem to sell. We have this need to tear people down and to mock.
Yeah.
And we've become tribal because I think we're trying to find meaning in our tribe because we're still craving meaning. Yeah. So if we can just point out who the bad guys are, then we'll be okay. It's the same reason why people get denounced and purity spirals exist. Because as long as you can be at the top pushing someone else down, then you're the good guy until they come for you. And the fact is, you're actually not good. I'm not good.
Yeah,
and
good.
I try to be good, and then I hurt people. And do I do that thing where I apologize to the mob and I say, I don't know how that happened. Those words were not my words. It wasn't me that said that thing. I wasn't being myself. I wasn't being true to myself. There's a standard set of terms you have to say when you apologize for having done something wrong. And these are all the things you're supposed to say. But it's premised upon the fact that I'm actually fundamentally good, and somehow this other character emerged from me momentarily. But I really have the power to master that character and be better. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is actually that was me, because I'm a sinner and I make mistakes and I get angry and I say stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry. That's another way of looking at it. And now maybe I can learn a lesson.
Yeah.
But the lesson to learn is not, here's how I go away and now become good. the lesson to learn is, here's how I get saved. I need to be saved. If I'm to have any hope at all, I need a savior. I need someone and something outside of this whole circus.
Yeah. And if our children, if the next generation is going to have any hope at all, if any of the kids that go to this church are going to have any hope in the world at all, it has to be this that comes from outside. It's the only way that they don't have just wretched, miserable lives leading into absolute hell. But thanks be to God, he's provided the way.
Speaking of those from outside,
there they are.
Well, this has been a podcast at Christ Church, Fox Chapel. We're really glad that you'd listened to it. It's important, I think, as a church, we dig more and more into this kind of a thing, and we're only scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for listening. We love you. We'll see you all very soon. Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.